Our most contemporary account of Caesar's assassination comes from Nicolaus of Damascus, who was writing in around AD 14. Not himself an eyewitness, but reasonably close to the events, although we do need to bear in mind that he was writing under the Emperor Augustus, Julius Caesar's successor, and that might therefore have coloured the way that he wrote about things. Anyway, Nicolaus of Damascus records that the conspirators had considered a number of plans for killing Caesar, but they settled on an attack in the Senate, where their togas would provide cover for their blades. There's also the symbolism, of course, of killing the dictator Caesar in the Senate House, which represents the Republic. Rumours of a plot were already going around by this time, and some of Caesar's friends actually tried to stop him from going to the Senate. His doctors were concerned by some dizzy spells that he was suffering, and his wife Calpurnia had had worrying dreams. Brutus, though, stepped in to reassure Caesar that he'd be fine. Caesar is said to have made some sort of religious sacrifice which revealed bad omens, despite several attempts to find something more encouraging. Again, many of his friends warned him to go home at this point, but again, Brutus reassured him. In the Senate, one of the plotters, a man named Tullius Cimber, approached Caesar under the pretext of pleading for his exiled brother. He grabbed Caesar's toga, preventing him from standing, and apparently giving the signal to the rest of the conspirators to attack. Nicolaus then recounts a messy scene with men injuring each other as they scrambled to kill Caesar. Once he was down, more conspirators rushed in, perhaps keen to make their mark on history, and he was reportedly stabbed at least 35 times. So the aftermath of this: Republican ambitions backfire, war ensues. Once Caesar was dead, and expecting a hero's reception, the assassins ran out into the streets announcing to the people of Rome that they were free again. But Caesar had been enormously popular, particularly with ordinary people, who had seen Rome's military triumphant while they themselves had been well treated and entertained by Caesar's lavish public entertainments. Caesar's supporters were ready to use this people power to support their own ambitions. The Senate voted an amnesty for the assassins. This truce was negotiated between the politician Cicero, who had been a long-standing opponent of Caesar, and Caesar's loyal lieutenant Antony. Antony had expected to be named Caesar's heir, but when the will was read, Caesar's 19-year-old great-nephew Octavian was named instead. Caesar officially adopted him, meaning that he could use the name Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus. Octavian quickly returned from Greece to Rome, recruiting Caesar's soldiers to his cause as he went. Back in Rome, Cicero made a series of speeches called the Philippics, denouncing Antony and supporting Octavian. Facing growing unpopularity at Rome, Antony demanded to be made governor of the province of Cisalpine Gaul, which was held by the assassin Decimus Brutus. He marched north with his legions and laid siege to Brutus's forces. But the consuls Hirtius and Pansa, supported by Octavian and his legions, came to Brutus's defence. Antony's forces were defeated at the Battle of Mutina in April 43. Hirtius was mortally wounded in the battle. After his death, Octavian demanded the consulship, despite being only 19, and threatened the Senate with military force in order to obtain it. Although Octavian and Antony were rivals, they realised that it was in their interests to work together to take revenge on Caesar's assassins. In late 43 BC, Antony, Octavian, and a third man, Lepidus, established the Second Triumvirate for confirming the Republic. This agreement is known as the Treaty of Bononia and was ratified by the passing of the Lex Titia. As part of the treaty, Octavian was given command over the provinces of Africa, Sicily, and Sardinia. Antony gained Gaul, which was important because it allowed him to portray himself as carrying on Caesar's work. Lepidus was granted the provinces of Hispania and Gallia Narbonensis, but he sacrificed his legions to Octavian. Significantly then, of the three triumvirs, only Octavian and Antony had military imperium. To cement their alliance, the triumvirs drew up a list of prescriptions, as Sulla had done back in 81 BC. This was to raise funds for their campaign against Caesar's assassins and to crush any opposition that remained. Antony and Octavian struck a brutal deal. Antony allowed his uncle to be added to the list on the condition that Octavian also added Cicero. Antony was still bitter about the speeches Cicero had made against him the previous year. Cicero was executed and his tongue nailed to the door of the Senate house, where Antony's wife Fulvia stuck a pin through it. In 42 BC, the triumvirate officially declared war on the liberators, Caesar's assassins. At the Battle of Philippi, the forces of Brutus and Cassius were defeated by the forces of Antony and Octavian. After this victory, the provinces were redistributed between the triumvirs. Antony kept Gaul and gained the eastern provinces, while Octavian was granted all of Italy and Spain. Lepidus was relegated to Africa. The triumvirate was becoming a two-man game. Now that Antony and Octavian no longer had a common enemy to fight against, trouble was on the horizon. The following year, Antony's wife and younger brother conspired against Octavian in an attempt to gain sole power for Antony. However, they were defeated by Octavian's forces at the Battle of Perugia in northern Italy. The Parthians, Rome's eastern enemy, took control of Syria and Judea. This was significant as it gave Antony a reason to keep his legions active. He would need to campaign to win Syria and Judea back. In 40 BC, Antony's lieutenant Calenus, who was administering affairs in Gaul while Antony was in the east, died. Octavian seized the opportunity to take Calenus's 11 legions, despite Antony's objections. However, outright hostility between Antony and Octavian was avoided by the signing of the Treaty of Brundisium, in which the triumvirate was reconfirmed. Antony married Octavian's sister Octavia as a sign of their alliance. Whilst all this had been happening, Sextus Pompey, the son of Pompey the Great, had unofficially seized control of Sicily and was now revolting against the triumvirate. He was blockading the Italian peninsula, preventing vital grain supplies from reaching Italy. In 39 BC, the triumvirs negotiated the Pact of Misenum. Pompey agreed to give up the blockade in exchange for being promised the consulship for 33 BC. However, the very next year, Octavian attempted to take Sicily from Sextus Pompey in breach of the truce. To help him, Antony agreed to give Octavian 120 ships in exchange for 4 legions. Octavian took the ships, but then refused to send the troops to Antony. What a snake. In the same year, Antony's lieutenant Ventidius killed the king of Parthia, and Antony resumed his campaigns in the east. In 37 BC, the triumvirate was officially renewed for a further 5 years. Antony reaffirmed his alliance with the Egyptian queen Cleopatra, who had previously been a supporter and the lover of Caesar. Antony and Cleopatra themselves became lovers. This would prove to be a very bad move. In 36 BC, the forces of Octavian and Lepidus finally defeated Sextus Pompey in Sicily. Sick of being sidelined, Lepidus stationed his legions in Sicily and demanded either that province or the governorship of Spain. This gave Octavian the excuse to accuse Lepidus of treason. Lepidus's troops clearly saw which way the wind was blowing and defected to Octavian, leaving Lepidus without military support. He submitted his command, retaining only the title of Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, and went into exile. This meant the triumvirate now consisted essentially only of Antony and Octavian. Remember how well the first triumvirate went after the death of Crassus? Antony managed to retake Syria and establish a seat in Antioch, from which he launched the invasion of Parthia, presumably hoping to win great glory and riches. The invasion was an unparalleled failure. The king of Armenia, who had been allied to Rome, defected to Parthia, and 25,000 Roman troops perished on the march back to Antioch. However, at least Antony had a pretext for keeping his legions active. Octavian now realised that he too needed an excuse to maintain his troops, and so in 35 BC, he embarked on a fairly pointless campaign in Illyricum, modern-day Croatia. Once Antony realised the Parthian campaign had been an unmitigated disaster, he left Syria and returned to Egypt, where he openly set up camp in Alexandria with Queen Cleopatra. This allowed Octavian to publicly denounce him for showing disrespect to his wife, Octavian's sister, and to paint him as a traitor to Rome. Undeterred, Antony reconquered Armenia and then placed Alexander Helios, his infant son with Cleopatra, on the throne. This was not very in keeping with the Roman hatred of kings. Antony then staged a triumph, a victory parade, for his conquest of Armenia, outside of Rome. This was the first time anyone had staged a triumph outside of the city, and was technically treason. Not content with this level of unrepublican behaviour, in 34 BC, Antony awarded the provinces of Cyrenaica and Libya to his daughter Cleopatra Selene, and Syria and Cilicia to his youngest son Ptolemy. These provinces belonged to the Roman people and were not Antony's to give away. The Senate was supposed to award them to ex-consuls for a time-limited period. It was undeniable that Antony was beginning to act like a monarch. He named Cleopatra Queen of Kings and her son with Caesar, a boy named Caesarion, King of Egypt. This attempt to establish a dynastic monarchy caused outrage in Rome. It also challenged Octavian's status as Caesar's heir. This episode is known as the Donations of Alexandria and marks the beginning of the end for Antony. In 33 BC, Octavian was consul again. During his consulship, he openly accused Antony in the Senate, claiming that he had abandoned Octavia, illegally executed Sextus Pompey, illegally started wars in the East, that he was acting like a king and an enemy of Rome. Antony retaliated by claiming that Octavian had been sleeping with Julius Caesar and had forged his own adoption papers. Perhaps understandably, the majority of Romans found Octavian's accusations more convincing. The following year, the triumvirate officially came to an end. Octavian gave up the title of triumvir, claiming that power was restored to the consuls and Senate. Antony refused to give up his title, allowing Octavian to accuse him again of usurping power. However, the consuls that year were allies of Antony, and they denounced Octavian, who retaliated by illegally calling a meeting of the Senate and surrounding himself with armed bodyguards. Around a third of the Senate, including the consuls, fled to Antony in Alexandria. Rome was now effectively at civil war, as all the leading citizens had chosen sides. Octavian now seized Antony's will from where it was kept in the Temple of Vesta and read it aloud in the Senate. The will named Caesarion Caesar's heir and stated that Antony wanted to be buried in Alexandria. Armed with this treacherous document, Octavian declared Antony an enemy of the state and declared war on Egypt.